Type A gets talked about like it's something you need to fix. Like if you could just slow down, want less, or care a little less, everything would feel easier. And honestly, that advice has always felt a little off. Because your drive is the reason you get things done. It's how progress happens. It's how businesses are built, families are supported, and ideas are actually turned into reality. The problem isn't that you're driven. It's that no one ever taught you how to direct that drive once pressure enters the picture.
Exactly. Most advice treats ambition like the issue, when really, ambition is the asset. Type A women don't struggle because they lack motivation or discipline. They struggle because their strongest traits get overused when things feel heavy or uncertain. And instead of helping you direct that energy, the message is usually just do less or slow down. And that doesn't work. What actually helps is understanding how your drive shows up under pressure, because that's where things usually start to fall apart.
Your type A traits are a superpower, but power without direction eventually works against you.
Before we talk about what's hard, we need to say what's true. Type A women are builders. They notice gaps and step in. They take responsibility when others hesitate. They follow through when things get uncomfortable. They just don't have ideas, they execute. That's not accidental, that's skill. And it's why Type A women are often the ones holding everything together, both at work and at home.
You're also comfortable carrying weight. Decisions, expectations, pressure, those things don't scare you away the way they scare other people. You tend to step forward when things get serious. That's why people rely on you. That's why you're frustrated with more. And that's also why it can feel confusing when, despite all the capability, things still start to feel unsustainable. The issue isn't your competence. It's what happens when your strength becomes your default response to everything.
Here's the shift most people miss. Pressure doesn't change who you are. It reveals how you cope. When things are calm, your strengths work beautifully. But when pressure increases, those same traits start showing up differently. That's where patterns emerge. Not personality flaws, not character issues, just patterns.
Most Type A women rotate between 3 patterns depending on the season they're in. You might recognize all 3 at different times, but usually one shows up most often. These aren't labels to box you in, they're explanations for why your effort sometimes produces results and sometimes it just produces exhaustion. Let's start with the hustler because this is where I personally live. Hustlers respond to pressure by doing more. When something matters, they push harder. They add hours, they take on more responsibility. They assume effort will solve the problem because effort usually has solved the problem in the past. Hustlers are incredibly effective until they're not. And burnout doesn't show up as weakness, it shows up as frustration, resentment, or that constant feeling of running behind no matter how much you do.
What makes this tricky is that hustlers don't feel irresponsible when they overwork. They feel committed. They feel dependable. They feel like they're doing what needs to be done. Productivity has always been rewarded, so it's easy to miss the moment when effort stops being strategic and starts being reactive. Hustlers don't burn out because they don't care. They burn out because they care deeply and don't pause long enough to redirect their energy.
The advantage of the hustler isn't endless effort, it's focused effort. When drive gets direction. Hustlers don't work harder, they work smarter.
Then there's the overplanner. Overplanners are thinkers. They're strategic. They like clarity and structure. Planning helps them feel grounded, and that's a real strength. Overplanners can see problems coming early. They're thoughtful, they're prepared, but under pressure, planning can quietly replace action. One more system, one more outline, one more round of getting ready before moving forward.
The hard part is that planning feels productive. You're busy, you're refining, you're working on it. But momentum stalls because clarity becomes the goal instead of progress. Often, underneath all that planning is a very real fear of getting it wrong. Overplanners aren't slow because they don't care. They're slow because they care deeply about doing it well.
The strength here is strategic thinking. When planning supports action instead of delaying it. Overplanners become powerful decision makers. Without boundaries, though, preparation turns into a holding pattern. And then there's the avoider, which is where I tend to land. Avoiders respond to pressure by pulling back. When expectations feel overwhelming or unclear, disengagement feels safer than disappointment. This isn't laziness, it's self-protection. Avoiders often do their best work in short, intense bursts, but struggle with steady follow-through when the pressure feels constant.
Avoiders are often highly discerning. They notice misalignment quickly. They're selective about where they put their energy, but without structure, that selectivity turns into delay. Things get pushed off until urgency forces action. And while last-minute intensity can create results, it also creates stress cycles that are hard to sustain.
The advantage of the avoider is discernment, when paired with clear expectations and steady checkpoints. Avoiders don't just avoid burnout, they build momentum that actually lasts.
All three of these patterns come from the same core traits: ambition, responsibility, and competence. The difference is how those traits show up under pressure. And that's why generic advice often fails. What helps a hustler slow down might completely stall an avoider. What motivates an overplanner might overwhelm someone else.
When you understand your pattern, you stop fighting yourself. You start forcing strategies that don't fit. Instead of trying to become a different kind of person, you learn how to work with the way you're wired.
You don't need to become less driven to feel better. You don't need to want less or aim lower. You just need direction, so your strength keeps working for you instead of against you.
Once you understand your pattern, the right strategies become obvious, and that's what we'll start breaking down next.
If you're not sure which type A pattern you lean toward, take the type A quiz. It'll help you put language to your tendencies and start using your drive with more intention.
Because when you understand how you operate, you stop wasting energy and start making progress that actually lasts.